Hi, I'm Yolanda and this is Speak On. Today we're covering a much requested topic, particularly based on the disruption caused by the past few years. As it's the start-ish of a new year, we're talking about finances, and I'm joined by award-winning financial journalist and editor of The Money Edit, Kalpana Fitzpatrick. She also writes money columns for several women's magazines and is passionate about helping people be better with their money, save more, and be smart spenders. And let's face it, she's exactly the kind of person I need to speak to right now, because after spending barely anything in 2020, I went a little bit mad in 2021 and I need to rein it in. Welcome, Kalpana. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you very much. It's great to be on here.
Thank you so much for joining us. First of all, how did you get into writing about money?
Totally by accident, let's face it. So like I started my journalism career in finance at the Financial Times Group, where I was writing about pensions. And at the time, I just wanted to be a journalist. And I thought I'll try anything, and ended up in finance, loved it. And, that's it. It's been going on since then.
Okay, brilliant. So when you actually started training to be a journalist and when you got into it, what did you hope to write about at that point? Or what do you think you were going to write about?
Do you know what? I was really very much, at the time, it was very much focused on just being a journalist and just learning. It's a huge learning curve. I started in a different kind of financial journalism at the time. I was writing about pensions and investments. So it was quite heavy topics.
Yeah.
I was definitely thrown in at the deep end, but as they say, it's the best place to be when you start out as a rookie anywhere. So over the years, I really loved writing about just personal finance and doing more to help everyday people. And I think I'm definitely in the right place, because that's what I really, really love doing now, is just helping people be better with their money and make smart choices.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's face it, something we absolutely need. I know that I think there are very few people, unless you came up with a really good idea during like lockdown, or you had shares in Zoom or something like that. On the whole, the past few years have been so disruptive financially, with people having to take time off work, some people losing their jobs. There's just like everything is a bit crazy right now. What is the one thing you think we should learn about finances and money that a lot of people don't know? I know that's quite a broad question, but is there something you think, okay, everyone would benefit from knowing this one thing?
Yeah. Well, do you know what the first thing I would say is, I think everyone should stop telling themselves they're bad with money. I hear that so many times. Everyone says to me, I'm so bad with money. And you know what? They just bury their head in the sand and forget about it. But I think the main thing is just really always know your situation. So know what's in your bank account, know what your debts are, know what you owe, just really have a good snapshot of your finances. Do not bury your head in the sand, because I think that's the worst thing. I know people that don't even check in their current account, because it's that fear. It's like, oh, I'm not going to check my current account. I'd rather not. But actually, you should just check it daily. You've got apps nowadays. Just dip into it and see, because it's just, being mindful of your finances, really. And I think that's the key message, is do not bury your head in the sand, no matter what your situation is.
Okay, that's a really good one, because I've done that myself several times, especially when I was younger. And then there was a point where I was like, okay, why am I doing that? Because that's not helping me. It's not helping anyone. And it was only at that point that I started to become, I was about to say better with money, because like you said, I wasn't bad with money. I was just burying my head in the sand. But then I just became aware of it, and then was able to actually focus on it and do something about it, essentially.
Exactly. And if you've got, your current account, it will have an app, your banking app. If you haven't downloaded it, just download it on your phone, because actually it does make it easier to check your current account, and it's got loads of tools on there. Like you get spending alerts every time you buy something, you get a little ping that tells you you've bought something. And that's, it's just that mindfulness about money generally. But there's no point saying, oh, I have no idea what's in my current account, I dare not look. That doesn't work nowadays. No. I think you do need to look. So just keep it easy for yourself. Download the app. I would say download the app.
Yeah, absolutely. And I use things like Plum, Money Hub, those kind of things that actually kind of give you breakdowns, because where I bank, they don't give you, they've only just started doing that on the app, and the app's still not quite there yet, where they can give you a breakdown of what you're spending across different areas. And I found things like Plum, Money Hub, and those kind of apps are really helpful for saying, okay, Yolanda, that might be too much delivery.
Yeah, absolutely. So if your banking app, now all the banks are different, some are a little bit behind the curve than others, some are sort of catching up, some are launching new initiatives. There are apps, and you've just mentioned some as well, like there's Money Dashboard, for example, Plum, Emma, there's loads. And Yeah, they give you a snapshot of your spending, and you can connect all your bank accounts. So if you've got several accounts or credit cards, etc., you can see where your spending is in it, and it also tells you where you're spending. So if you can see, actually, you spent probably a bit too much on entertainment or too much on fashion, and and if you feel like you can rein back on some of that spending and you want to, then it's just that snapshot vision. And a lot of people find that really useful, because another thing a lot of people say to me is, I don't actually know where my money goes, and I feel really skint at the end of the month, and they have no idea what they spent on. So this actually tells you where your money has gone. So that is certainly very, very useful. And also I would say that probably think about where you bank as well. If your bank isn't providing you with the tools that you need, there are so many types of banks out there. You've got the challenger banks, so there's some of the newer ones like Monzo and Starling, which actually do that, and they are proper banks. They're just digital banks. So if you opened an account when you were 18 and you haven't switched since, then just have a look at what else is around. You don't necessarily have to close your existing account, but think, oh, actually, no, I really like what that bank's offering me and it suits my needs. And it could be that they just have a free overdraft facility, but if you're always going into overdraft and paying charges, then why not have an account that actually serves your needs? And or it's like the technology behind it as well, like the tools that you've mentioned. If that's easier for you, use that. So have a look around as well. And if you haven't changed banks since you were 18, then maybe it is time to switch bank.
Yeah, okay, I feel seen by that statement. I've had my bank since I was 16 years old. I banked at the same place, but then I do have accounts other places that I use for different things, but that only happened actually that time when I was like, I really need to look at my finances. And then now I have things like a challenger bank account, and that I use that for, that is for transport, that's for something specific. So that's how I've kind of broken it down to help myself a little bit. I mean, don't get me wrong, I still spend way too much money, yeah, and I do need to rein it in, but it's good to see it. What is the most commonly asked question you get around finances?
How can I get rich? I get asked that all the time.
I didn't even think about that.
I do. Oh, well, maybe you're not the one, but I do get asked that so many times. What can you tell me that's going to make me rich? And I'm like, well, I can actually tell you a few things, but I wouldn't say, rich. Depends what you did, what is rich to you, sort of thing.
Exactly. Is it like comfortable or Kardashian?
Yeah, exactly. I do get asked that a lot. One of the things I think a lot of people expect is like a quick fix, like I want a quick fix. And when it comes to your finances, there isn't necessarily a quick fix. Okay, so there are things that you need to do, there are things that you need to not do, and the things, again, the mindfulness really does come into it. It's about how you think about things as well, has to change. So you need to take like a bigger picture, but there is a bigger picture to it. You can't just do that one thing and say, right, that's going to sort me out, if you know what I mean.
And what's your stock answer? Like, you're like, well, what tips do you give people?
I won't say it's the magic answer. It's a very, very long answer. But I think the thing that I mentioned, obviously, is know where you stand, know what situation your finances are in. And that's very, very important. And that includes, if you've got debts, you need to know exactly what they are, what you're paying on them as well. People have credit card debts and like no idea what it's costing them. You need to know those numbers, okay? So those are the short-term stuff. So, banking with the right bank, knowing what your debts are, knowing what's in your bank, where's money going, where it's coming in from, etc. Getting that balance right. Long-term, it's got to be about investing and building that financial resilience and financial security for your future. So that's where investing comes in, and I can talk a bit more about that as well. And that is really important. So one thing I get quite frustrated about is when people focus on saving. We've all heard the statement, stop buying lattes. Okay, if you want to buy a latte, okay? That is not going to make you, and I'll say rich in inverted commas, okay? So we're saving £2 here and there, but that isn't, to me, that isn't, building up that future savings pot. That's not going to get you there. What you need to do is have more of a long-term plan and start thinking about investing money and building that future wealth, so to put it. So really, so the first point is know where you stand, sort everything out, have some savings for emergencies, etc., have a strong budget, and then think about investing for your long-term future. Awesome. It's a bit of a mixed up answer, but there are steps to it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of like when people you were saying have savings for emergencies, what's a minimum that, obviously this is all dependent on people's situations, what's the minimum people should attempt to have for, I don't know, contingencies, emergencies.
Yeah, so you could call it a buffer plan, emergency plan, slush fund, whatever you want to call it. So this is money that you should have into an easy to access account, and it should be ideally 6 months worth of income. And it can be whatever you like. Just put money into it and say, this is my emergency savings pot and I'm putting money into it every month, and set up a direct debit for that. Don't try and do it at the end of the month. Set up a direct debit at the start of the month, let it go in and forget about it. But try and get to that 6 months worth, and that will put you in a good position. So COVID has taught us so much. One of the things it has taught us is unexpected things can happen, and your finances can be strained. So this is going to prepare you, let's say, maybe for the next big thing. Hopefully not the next big thing, but you know what I mean. But also, if your car breaks down or your boiler breaks down, or you've been made redundant, or you need a bit of a buffer fund, and you could just dip into that and think, I'm okay for the next 6 months. You can make it a year's worth if you want, but 6 months is a good number, I'd say. Start working towards that and prioritize that no matter whatever you can afford. So when you do any kind of budgeting, and so that might be like looking at what money's coming in, what's going out, how much you can dedicate to savings, etc. Yes, that might mean making a few cutbacks, but you want to get to a stage where actually you've budgeted so well, so you've got some money that goes into savings, some money that's for you to enjoy your latte, your clothes, whatever you want, and there's some money that you just use for bills, etc. And as I've said, bad things do happen.
Yeah, absolutely. It's essential to have, isn't it? I think genuinely the only way I kind of got through some of the lockdown was because I had luckily, my God, and uncharacteristically been irresponsible enough to put some money aside. And I was like, oh my God, thank God. Because otherwise I would have been screwed.
It's so important. Don't underestimate the importance of it. Just put it away, 10, 20 pounds, whatever you can afford. Start small, build it up, etc. So definitely do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually, again, talking about Plum again, so it's on my mind because of this. I got into using it like last year, just doing, when they kind of do like they top things up, or they round it off. And just by doing round it up and a few of the other fun challenges, I've actually ended up saving stuff. And because it's going out, I'm not even necessarily noticing it's going out because it's such nominal amounts. And then I look at it and I'm like, oh, that's really good, and I haven't touched it as well. And it's like I'm just ignoring it and pretending it's not there. It's emergency use or whatever else. So it's just a fun challenge for myself.
And the roundup thing is actually quite interesting, because when people say to me, I wish I could save, I don't actually have any savings, I bet you can find some savings. And the roundup is really good because it automatically rounds up to the nearest pound and puts it into a savings account for you. Some bank accounts do that as well, by the way. So again, it depends where you bank. There's another app called Chip that does that for you as well. So there's quite a few out there. And so many people said to me, I'm actually surprised at how much I've been able to save. Now, the important thing, however, I would say, keep your emergency savings away from your spending account, your current account. Keep it in a totally different account, because you don't want to know it's there. And your emergency, by the way, isn't, I need those pair of shoes. Okay, so your emergency is definitely, it's got to be a genuine emergency that's impacted your finances, or and even like a boiler breaking down actually is quite an expensive thing. So and to try and pay for that might be quite difficult, but you think, actually, I've got something for that.
So when it comes to assessing our finances, so let's say it's like, okay, so new year, I want to start doing this. Where do I start and how do I start? What is the absolute first thing I should do?
Create some kind of a budget. Now, I'm not one of those people that's going to tell you to go and start looking at all your bank accounts and your receipts and dwell on what you've done. Let's just look forward. There's this rule that I've come across, and it's been around. It's called the 20-30-50 rule. Okay, you can mix it up. The idea is that you use 50% of your income on your essential spending. So that's your bills, travel to work, etc. When you do travel to work, that is. You put 20% into savings, right? So that's 20% of your income. And then you use your 30%, and that is your spending money on whatever you want to spend. So this means when you go out and spend money, whatever it is, loads of makeup, going out with mates, etc., then that you don't have to feel guilty about it because you budgeted for it. Do you see what I mean? And you can say, actually, this is coming out from my spending money that I'm allowed. Because I think the thing about being good with money isn't about denying yourself about the things that you want. It isn't like, I really want that, but I can't have it because I should be good with money. That's not good with money, okay? It's about budgeting carefully, so that when you do get the things that you want, it's just part of your budget, basically. So I don't know if you've come across Money Helper, which is a government run website, and they have a budgeting tool on there. Citizens Advice has a budgeting tool on there. Use those tools, go on there, and it really helps you figure out how much your cost of living is, essentially.
Yeah, they have so many different resources on there. I was speaking to someone the other day, actually was planning a podcast, and they were talking about the fact they even have one on there where you can calculate the cost of the first year of having a child and things like that. It's just got such good resources, and I'm like, that's so interesting, because there are things that people do need to factor in when they want to make big life choices or big life changes.
Exactly. I think they even do like a couch to financial fitness challenge as well.
Oh,
just
wow.
a bit like the couch to 5K. So so you could just set up your challenges, and every week you achieve something, and that's really, really useful as well. So if you're struggling to kind of figure out what's what, and just have a look at it, and have a look at loads of stuff in there actually that you will all find really, really useful.
Yeah. And so you've mentioned Money Helper, we've mentioned a few different apps. What other guides or books or other tools are there available to help people start being more like financially responsible?
Yeah. Social media, I will mention some money books in a minute, but social media is full of people as well that talk about finances. However, I will say take some of that with a pinch of salt. Be careful who you follow, because some people are leading people down the wrong path. So, just try to look at the credentials that people have, and what are they telling you? Are they telling you to buy a stock in a company? Probably not the right thing to do, because you should never invest with the reliance of a stock of one company. That's not how you do it, especially if you're starting out. If you're following people on social media, they're always making you buy things, or the posts are full of affiliate links, then just be careful about that, because they're actually plugging something because they're getting something from it, rather than genuinely trying to help you, if you see what I mean. So books, there's a great book by a friend of mine, Laura Waitley. It's just called Money. I would say have a look at that, because it's just all your basics about money. And then if just, online, like I said, Money Helper, Citizens Advice. If you're worried about debt, there's Step Change has a lot of resources on there, and you can also go there for help as well. I think you could do like an online chat. That's some people find quite handy as well. So there are so many resources, and I would say do not overlook the money pages in newspapers, websites as well. So obviously we've got the Money Edit that I edit, but even the newspapers, they all have a money section. Now, a lot of people say they're quite scared of the money sections of the newspapers, but actually they are really, really useful. And I think one of the things about finance is people are so distant from it, so disinterested. Just start being little bit interested if you're serious about getting your finances in order and building financial resilience for the future. I think that's a really important message as well. It's not just about the now and then. Sometimes it's just good to be in the know. And it comes down to that message that I was saying earlier. You can't bury your head in the sand about this.
Yeah, you really can't. And so we've talked about kind of how to get started. So what is the first step to taking control of your finances if you are in debt? So let's say people have done it, they've looked at it, and they were like, okay, no more burying my head in the sand. And the number just, obviously that can be so terrifying for people to look at that number and think, oh crap, what do I do now? So what is the first step for those people?
Right, the first step, is I would say, is make a list of all your debts. You need to know what they are. You need to know exactly what the interest on that is. And I would also like to just mention, especially if you've gone into buy now, pay later. This is where you buy something and then it gives you a few months to pay it off. But actually, some people fall into the trap of not being able to pay it off, and the interest is that is quite high. One, just don't use it. Second, if you've got that as well, don't forget that. Store cards, credit cards, any loans, everything. Okay, write it down. Then next to it, write down the percentage. So you might be able to bring some of those together. So like, for example, if you've got a really high interest rate on a credit card and you've got savings, then you should probably use your savings to pay off that debt, because actually the interest on that savings is probably not even 1%, but your credit card debt might be costing you 30%. So just random numbers, okay? So it's just making better use of that money that you do have. So if you have got savings, use that to pay off your debt. And start paying off your expensive debt as much as you can. Obviously, always pay the minimum, but if you've got expensive, if one credit card costs you 30% and the other one's costing you 15%, then you want to try and pay off that 30% off as much as possible. If you've got a good credit score and you can get a 0% balance transfer deal, then that's good, because that means you can shift all your credit card debt onto that card, and then you can pay off just the minimum without the interest charges. But you do need a good credit score to probably get that top deal. So now, if you're really, really struggling with debt, one thing I would say is talk to someone about it, because I think we all grow up with the fact that we think that being in debt is shame. We shouldn't feel ashamed about it. We should talk to someone about it. It can be friend, family. And if you don't want to talk to a friend or family, National Debt Line you can call up. You can call up Step Change and ask for advice. Like I said, Step Change has a little chat feature, so you don't actually even, if you don't feel like speaking to anyone, you don't have to. And then my key message is that debt is never as bad as you think it is. Okay, so if you think, oh gosh, this is really bad, I'm not going to get out of this, you can, because actually speaking to some of these debt change charities, if they can see that you are in serious debt, there are things that they can do to help you. So they might talk to your creditors and ask them to pause payment or waive the interest charges, etc., or come up with some sort of repayment plan that works for you. There are things that they can do. And obviously it's also worth just calling up your bank and tell them your situation, just say, I'm really struggling to pay this, what can you do to help me? See if they can help you as well. It all comes down to just talk to someone. And we hear of so many horror stories of people going into debt and not talking to someone about it. And I just think that's really got to be the main thing, is open up and have that conversation with someone, because honestly the weight it takes off your shoulders is so good. So I think talk about it, get help, but also just know exactly what your situation is, and things are never as bad as they may seem.
Yeah, absolutely. And you made a really good point about taking the weight off your shoulders, because think about the mental health implications of keeping that into yourself and being frightened of it, and then facing that alone, and knowing that there are places that you can call, and it doesn't have to be, like you said, I mean, you made such a good point. We're brought up to think that we should feel shame for being in kind of any kind of dire financial situation or having debt, but essentially we live in a society that is we live in a capitalist society that's kind of constructed to help us get there really, really easily. So it's not something anyone should be ashamed of, because let's face it, back in the day you could buy a house for a little bit and it was a certain percentage of how much you earned. Now the cost of a house has gone up, but the cost of living's gone up, but the cost of how much we get paid has not risen with that. So it's the easiest thing in the world actually to get into any kind of debt. And let's face it, with everything that's happened over the past 2 years, we also know that there, but what's that saying, but there for the grace of God go I, kind of thing. It really is. It can be 1 month out of work or X amount of weeks out of work is genuinely what might be the line between you being okay to being in debt or kind of in a precarious financial situation. So I think, people should really try to, if they can, separate themselves from the shame. And it's like, it's not your fault. It's society's fault. It's capitalism, essentially, isn't it?
Also, I think, speak to your friends about money. Money is such a taboo subject. We sit at the dinner table, we'll talk about anything, but we won't talk about our money. You don't necessarily need to tell people what you earn if you don't feel comfortable about that, but you could talk about, did you get bonus, do you pay into a pension, what bank do you use? These are conversations that are actually quite important. And you'd be amazed at just what you can just pick up from conversations from your friends. So one thing I recently spoke to my friend about, unfortunately my friends can't escape conversations about money, so because I'm always talking to them about it, but just planning a holiday, and I spoke to her, and she said, where shall I do my currency exchange? And I'm like, well, no one takes physical currency, and also you just need a card. She goes, oh yeah, but my bank charges me. And she had no idea actually there are, because most banks will charge you some sort of foreign exchange charge. So when you pay with your card, they'll slap on 3%, which really adds up. But she had no idea that you can get these specific money cards, or there are specific banks that have no currency charges at all when you spend abroad. And she's like, I did not know that. So just simple conversations even like that can really help. But also it just makes it just, if there is a problem, then you might feel a bit more comfortable approaching a friend as well, because you've
Yeah.
spoken about money in the past. So yeah, make it the next dinner conversation, but
Mm.
not too much, because you might get chucked at the dinner table.
Yeah.
But but yeah, like, just open up the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes perfect sense. Like you said, we talk about so many other things, and we talk about things that are affecting us, but because of that shame element of it, I can imagine people talking about all the other things that are affecting them, and then they won't say anything about that at all.
Exactly.
And then we'll still sit there with that weight on their shoulders. And having those conversations is really helpful, like things around pensions. Me and my friends have been talking recently about even things like NFTs, crypto, just things like that, just demystifying anything around finance, investment. When any of us have bought property or anything like that, we talk through the process quite extensively, and because we're all learning about it as well. And it's really interesting to learn about that. And actually, I learned about like preloaded cards years ago at this point, but preloaded cards because my friend travels a lot, and she said, oh yeah, if you do a preloaded card, or if you go with this bank, then I don't get charged for taking out money abroad, which is essential because I have to work abroad. So, and I was like, well, that's interesting to know, and then learned that for next time. So it is vital to have these conversations.
Yeah,
definitely. I mean, we give tips on so many things, or we learn from having all these conversations, but this we're too quiet about.
absolutely. And you know what, another thing you could do with a friend is, if you wanted to, do a savings challenge with them. Or I always say to people, forget about doing dry January, for example. Try and do a no spend January, where obviously you pay your bills and you eat,
Yeah.
but you just tell yourself, I'm just not going to spend anything. And you could do that with a friend. You could do that any month or any week. You can say, I'm doing this, do that with me maybe.
Yeah.
There are so many things that you can do, but I think some people think that talking to your friends about money is just all about revealing your income, and some people don't feel comfortable about that, and that's fine. But it doesn't have to be about that. It could just be about sharing tips and even doing challenges together if you wanted to.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is God, years ago, I actually did a challenge with some of my other friends, because since moving to London almost 20 years ago, every time you move, you just have too much stuff. So I moved here with too much stuff. Then every time I've moved, I've kind of shared bits and bobs, going along, selling stuff on Gumtree, eBay, all that kind of fun stuff. But then I have an extraordinary amount of clothes as well, and shoes. Because I sew, I don't really have to get rid of much stuff. I can fix it, I can change things. So I end up with like a ton of clothes. And I just thought, okay, my wardrobe might be too big because it's becoming a pain to move around with. So my friend said that she spends way too much money on clothes. This was, I think, around 2011. We had a challenge of, we couldn't buy anything new. We had to wear everything we owned in a year. We're like, no new things, everything we owned. And my God, the money we saved. And it was a challenge. So we worked together as well. So we had to set up in different combinations. And we were like, you can't wear anything twice necessarily unless it's in a new combination. And we managed to get through, Kalpana, sorry, a shameful amount of days. It was insane.
Brilliant though,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, but we saved so much money to realize we were shopping every month, and then we didn't shop on. Oh, I didn't buy anything for around 10 months because I took me long to get through my clients.
I think hopefully the attitude towards that is generally changing as well.
Yeah.
I think people are a lot more ethical and want to be a bit more green nowadays. So they don't want to add anything that might damage the environment. So
absolutely,
people are actually trying to make things last, or they're thinking a bit more ethically when they buy things. I think actually, is this just going to go in the dump yard at some point, or am I actually go? So, the mending things, they're upcycling things, selling things. So I actually sell quite a few things on a Vinted app, because my children grow out of clothes, they're little, growing fast. So sometimes I sell things on that. It's just quite useful. It just means things are being recycled. And I think we should all have that sort of mindset. It's not just that, it just helps the planet and your bank balance. So
yeah, absolutely. It's like
it's
sustainable saving.
Exactly. And that's actually that can be a whole different podcast. And people are thinking that way as well, thinking what more can I do to help the planet. And I think lockdown has really helped people think like that as well, and the brands that they buy from. So I think we've all kind of been thinking a bit differently.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you talked before about investments. What investment options, this is how long is a piece of string. What investment options are there for our money? Or what are the easiest, most accessible investment options for people?
I could go into a very long one on this. Just to keep it simple, I think one of the things that stops people from investing is, one, they just don't know where to start, okay? Or it's just misunderstood. Sometimes people say to me, I've invested, and actually all they've done is put money into a bank account, or they've put money into Bitcoins. High risk. you're more likely to lose your money than you are to make money. So the sensible approach to investing is, and by the way, this isn't financial advice, but it's information. So if you're looking to invest, go into investing into funds. So this is like a basket of companies. So you're never exposed to just one company, because if that company does badly, your money, you might not necessarily lose it, but if you put in £1,000 and it goes down by 20%, you've got 800. And so, you want to exposure to loads of different companies, and the funds allow you to do that. Now, one of the easiest ways to do it is like, you might think, well, I still don't know enough about it, I don't know where to start. Well, the good thing is there are now apps that let you invest with ease, let you start with £1 if you want, like Moneybox just rounds up your loose change and invests it for you. All you have to do is go on and tell them, they take you through a process of questions, say what your goals are, what your attitude to risk is. They'll ask you questions, they're just multiple choice, you answer them, and eventually they'll say, okay, we'll invest your money. And they'll pick the funds for you. You don't have to do, all you have to do is pay in the minimum amount, and then maybe say you want to pay in that minimum amount every month, set up a direct debit. You can, I think it can be ad hoc as well on some, they all have different requirements. Some are just £1, some are £25 minimum, some are £500 lump sum. So just read what suits you. And that's it. And then you can just tap in and have a look at your investments. I don't recommend that you look at it all the time. And another important thing is that investing is for your future. So you don't invest for money that you think you might use. You don't invest your emergency savings, for example, or if you're saving for something like a holiday, you don't necessarily invest that, especially if you're planning to go on holiday next year. It's money that you plan to use just building for your future wealth. Okay, so in 5 years minimum, you should look to invest for 5 years at least, 10 years ideally, and if not longer. So it is literally, now the good thing about investments is that you also benefit from what's known as compound interest. So that's interest on interest. So you're constantly making money on top of money you've already made. Yeah, and another thing I would say, investments can go up and down, and that's pretty normal. Like, I know when the pandemic hit, my investments went down, and but that's okay, it's normal, it will go up again. And that's why you invest for like a few years, because eventually you just see the upside, and historically that's what investments do, they just go on the upside, and you will do a lot better than putting money in a cash savings, because as you know, interest rates are low. Inflation is at 5.1%. That's the cost of living, which is very high, and so the importance of investing is, when you save money, you want to earn an interest that's higher than the rate of inflation. You're not going to find 5.1% in any bank account paying interest at the moment. So your investments, so you need to put your money somewhere where that's going to grow at a faster rate. So investments allow you to do that. And a final thing I would say is that you might think, well, no, it's safer in cash, but it's actually not, because actually you're losing the purchasing power, because the value of your money is going down because of inflation. You're not keeping up with inflation. So that's important as well. So it's just as risky by not investing. So that's a bit of a long story. We could do a whole new podcast on.
I'm definitely going to get back in for that, because I'm like, I have so many questions.
We'll definitely will. I'll drop you an email about that. But so there's just so much more to say. But I would say get interested in it, but do it the right way. So another thing I've noticed, and this is what people ask me a lot about as well, is like, where should I go for my Bitcoins? But if you've never invested, probably you don't want to put your money into Bitcoins. Okay, you might put a small amount if you really want to look at it. But what I'm saying, if you're serious about just growing your money, funds are the way to go. And if you haven't used your ISA, put it in an ISA, because actually that means you don't pay any tax on your returns. You can the government gives you up to 20,000 in an invest. You can put it in investment or cash, but obviously for investments it's a really good deal, and it just means you don't have to pay any tax on it.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, we're learning about this now as adults, and I feel like people we're striving to be more financially literate. But how do we teach children about how to manage finances, and what age should we start that? Because frankly, there's so much stuff I know now I wish I knew when I was much younger. I would have handled everything differently. Like I think I was like 28 or 29 when I started thinking, okay, let me sort myself out. My gosh, I would have liked to have started sooner. When should we work with kids on this?
Yeah, sure. So as young as possible, you can, when they're about 4, maybe you can just play play with money. I think there was some research done, and it shows that children start building attitudes around money from around age 7. So it is pretty much up to the parents to start talking about money as soon as possible. Start as young as 4, play shops and, talk about money. I think talking is really important. I think for me, it's just always talking about money. Don't make it that taboo subject. Unfortunately, my children do not escape the conversations about money either, just not with friends. So they do ask me questions, what's a pension? And I'm like, oh yeah, okay. And then, I mean, it doesn't matter if they're not interested. The point is we talk about it. So I think, don't think of it as a maths lesson. I think the main thing is be open about money. So play little games, talk about money, talk about the cost of things. One thing I personally don't do with my children is I don't just shout at them and say, we can't afford that. No, that, to me, it just says, oh, we can't afford this. I don't want them to grow up and think, in fact, I want them to think about what the cost of something is.
Yes.
How long I might have to work to do that, or how much would I need in my savings, and do I want to use all my savings on that? Is it worth it? Ask the questions around things that they want to buy, rather than just being told, no, you can't have it. End of story. And because it's too expensive, that's not the right message for me. Everyone finds their own way of what suits them, but I think just don't make it a taboo subject, because I think we all grew up with that and being told it's rude to talk about money, you don't ask that question. And actually it's okay to ask the questions, and you should tell them, but I think a lot of parents tell me, oh, look, I'm not good with money myself, what shall I tell them? I don't have anything to tell them. But you don't have to be like an expert, anything like that. They don't need to know the ins and outs, but what they need to know is that money, is okay to talk about. And that's fine. If you're saving for your children, show them like what you're doing. Like I have junior ISAs for mine. I sometimes show it to them online and just say, oh, look, this is what it is. No one goes into a bank these days, but have a visit to the bank, tell them what a bank is. I did some filming once with a whole load of little children, and they all had to answer, where does money come from? And there's so many strange answers. So just even telling them that, where does money come from? It's not from the back garden, it doesn't come from the Queen, and etc. Explain the simple things, and like I said, don't stress about it. Just the main thing is it's an open conversation in the household, and they will build good habits depending on how you talk about money, I'd say.
Yeah. Like I know my generation, we just really learn not to talk about, not to question, but I know younger generations are better at talking about it. But it's also why they're able to just do things like talk about their wages and talk about their salaries, and then get better salaries. Even that, exactly. Conversations around work, all those kind of things can massively improve your life and improve what you're asking for. God, I wish I discussed my salary when I was younger, because I screwed myself over by not doing that as well. So it would have been a great conversation to have, and know that I could talk about it freely like that, and see where there are any inequities, etc., so I can challenge them and get paid better.
Well, absolutely. So obviously what I mentioned was like obviously younger ones, and as they get older, teach them to question things, give them their own, talk to them about what you earn, if you've got debts, tell them. I'm not saying that you should worry your children or anything like that, but if you've got like a few concerns, just have an honest conversation with them. Don't sort of say, no, we're not going to talk about that, it's rude, or it's too embarrassing. Don't do that, because then they might grow up to think it's too embarrassing, or it's rude to talk about that, and actually it's okay.
Yeah. I mean, there is no financial education in school. Do you think it's something that should be incorporated into school, or do you think that is something that should be the responsibility of parents solely?
I think financial education starts at home. Without a doubt, you should start at home, because you want it to start as young as possible. Parents are the best teachers when it comes to your finances, and never underestimate how much kids learn from parents and grandparents, actually. Sometimes in the Indian culture, for example, it's quite normal to give cash as a gift. And when my children get it, and I noticed one of my sons, when he was writing Christmas cards, he was putting pound coins in some of his friends' cards. And I thought, and he obviously learned a habit. I thought that's very sweet of you.
But that's so sweet.
It is very sweet. And he's like, I've kind of run out. And I was like, well, how much have you? But the point is that, it was a habit that he's picked up. So kids do learn from, I know it's very sweet. Kids do learn from parents, okay? But obviously, I think 100% there should be financial education in schools. There is some from a certain age, but it's very limited. There are a lot of initiatives out there promoting financial education, doing a lot more to help people be educated. Financial companies are themselves doing a lot. Like they have like really, really good blogs on their sites. Media is doing a lot. You've got loads of journalists out there promoting financial literacy. I know like content that I write, we're not just doing news, but we are also doing so much to educate people, as much as like telling them about things that they really need to know about, you know, how to start budgeting, how to save for pension, why you need to save for pension. All those resources are online. Yes, there are a lot of people out there giving a lot of information, but who are they? What are their credentials? I think be careful about that. And I can't say that enough. And I think schools should do more. But unfortunately, at the moment, it's been left to the industry and the media to educate people. And we're doing a really good job. So really, really good job. And there is, like I said, loads of information out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, like in school, it would have been great to learn about all things finance, because, you know, like even though like I said it does start from home, it would be good to almost have, I suppose, almost like an independent source of that information that isn't tied to your own parents or family's attitudes towards money as well, based on however they view it or whatever situation they're in. Because even things like learning about credit scores, one of my friends knew about credit scores when we were in schools, and her dad was obsessed with building her credit score. They didn't really explain why, he just was. So he actually, as soon as she was in sixth form, when we went to college, he used to take stuff out like in her name and then pay it off to build up her credit score. And so when we were at uni, she's had like an excellent credit score, and that has served her well at a great time in her life. So how can we better our credit score, and why is it so important?
Sure. Okay, so the first thing is know what your credit score is. You can check it for free. The main credit reference agencies are Experian, TransUnion, and Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. So they're the three main credit reference agencies. Check with all three, because sometimes they hold little bits of different information. And then the next thing to do is also see what you can do to improve it. So a lot of people say to me, I don't have a credit card, and think they've done a great job. Yes and no, because actually it is quite a good idea to get a credit card, spend a small amount on it, pay it off, because that's telling our potential lenders in the future that you are good with borrowing money and you are trustworthy, and you pay off your money straight away. If you're paying rent, your rent doesn't always count towards your credit score. So if you're always paying on time and you're a good tenant, then you can make that work towards your credit score. So there's if you go to like Credit Ladder, you can use that to help your rental payment go towards your credit score, because it doesn't otherwise. Okay. And then I think, is it Experian? Experian has Experian Boost, which you can use, and that actually is a good one, because it will not just take into your rental payments, but if you have like Netflix and Spotify, I think it takes all those payments into account to help boost your credit score. So it's worth looking at.
Yeah.
So, and why does it matter? It matters because if you in the future, if you going to apply for a mortgage, or you're trying to get like a 0% balance transfer card that I mentioned earlier, you might not get the best deal, and that's everything like broadband. You could get rejected for a mobile phone contract if you wanted one, or if you were trying to buy something on finance, if it was like a 0% finance, you might not get that 0% finance because you've got a bad credit score. It's about putting yourself in a stronger position and making sure you're not always paying more than you have to for things in life. So it's really, again, works for your future needs as well.
Yeah, awesome. So when it comes to, like obviously credit is about how you're living now, applying for, like you said, applying for things in future, but let's kind of project into the future. So pensions is, again, when we were sourcing questions for this, so many people asked about pensions. So how much money should we aim to have when we retire, and how can we improve or build our pensions?
$1 million question. How much do I need? So what you need might not be what I need. Okay. So I think the main thing is, if you're working, you will be automatically enrolled into a pension fund. So don't turn around and say, actually, I don't want it. You do want it. Okay. And because the good thing about workplace pension is when you pay in, your employer pays in. So think of that as free money from them. If you don't pay in, you don't get that money. Okay. So that's a really good way to build your pension. you'll be paying the minimum, but if you can increase it, even if it's 1% more, paying more, because then your employer might match that. You can ask them how much will they match up to. Most employers will match, some don't, or some have a cap. It just depends on your employer. But if they say you pay in 10% and they'll pay in 10%, great, do it if you can do it. Okay, you have to obviously work out what's affordable to you.
Yeah.
And I think also pensions are invested, so they're not just going into a little pot and then you don't just get it back like later on in life. It's actually growing. So the important thing is start as young as possible. So people always say to me, oh, I'm in my 20s, I don't need to worry about pensions. And actually, it's the best time to think about pensions.
Yeah. Because
it means your money is starting to grow from a very young age. Do it later on, the same amount won't grow at the same rate, because you need it, it's like when you plant a seed in the garden, for the longer you leave it, the more it's going to grow. Okay, so and the later you plant it, the smaller the growth, if that makes sense. So if you try and visualize it, so yeah, start as young as possible, paying as much as you can. Ask your employer to what will they match you to. If you're self-employed, don't overlook your pensions. So many, I think there's over 60% of self-employed people do not have a pension.
I did that for a hot minute and I had to sort myself out, because I was
you need a pension.
I had to sort it out. It was insane.
Good. Well done for sorting it out. Okay, so you don't get the employer contributions, but you still get tax relief from the government. So it's still important to do. There are several pension companies you can go to for self-employed pensions. Some require you to pay in X amount per month. I think something like Nest, which is run by the government, you can pay in whenever you can. So if your income is varied, then that might suit you. I've written quite a few articles around self-employed pensions. But the main thing is, it's just really important, because you might tell yourself, I'm never going to stop working. But you have to remember that we do live a lot longer than we used to.
Yes.
Living longer is a thing, and it's a good thing, I think, but it also means we need more money for old age. But also you might say, I'm going to work forever, but you don't really know what life's going to throw at you.
Yeah, truly.
So you might say you want to work forever, but that might not actually be possible. Try and put yourself, far too many people also think that don't want to start young, they just think the state will provide for them. You might not get a state pension by the time you retire. I might not get a state pension by the time I retire. And if
we really don't know what the government's going to do to us.
And also, it's not much. Not much. So it's about 100 and something a week, and it's not enough to pay your bills and eat live. So, and your question about how much do I need, I think what's really important is to work out what you want. You might not know what you want to do in retirement, so I'd say think about the lifestyle that you want and how much it's going to cost you. And what sort of lifestyle do you have now, and how much of that do you want in older age? Do you want to be able to go to a nice salon and get your hair cut, or are you just happy doing it at the OAP centre? Do you want to go out and meet friends? Do you want to go on holidays? It just depends what kind of lifestyle you want, and think about how much it's going to cost you. And when you get your pension statement, you'll be able to see there's usually like a projected income, and you can see where that's going, and have a look. Don't ignore your pension statement. It comes once a year, and I think the government is working on some sort of online portal where you can have a look at all your pensions. If you've got pensions from past employers, make sure you keep track of them, let them know where you're living, so you don't lose them, because there's so many lost pensions out there. Not just like young people move around jobs so many times, and because of auto enrollment, you might find that you've got loads of little pots. You could bring them together if it's worthwhile. Obviously, you have to make sure that you're not losing any guaranteed benefits anywhere. I would say just pump away at that pension.
Absolutely. Well, my goodness, thank you so much, Kalpana. Honestly, this has been like such a great chat. No, it's not. My gosh, no, it's not enough. Have a podcast and share stuff with us all the time. I need to know. Oh my goodness. I'm going to now go back, read your entire back catalogue, make all the notes, and make every single possible change I can.
Thank you.
Yeah. So good. So much information. And also you talk about it so passionately and so you're so smiley and cheerful. And I'm like, I am taking everything you're saying
taking notes.
Yes, absolutely.
Keep smiling. Yes. Well, I really hope it's really useful, and I'd say, follow me on social media. I'm always talking about tips on money saving, etc., on like Instagram quite a lot. And yeah, just and if anyone wants to get in touch, ask any questions, I try and answer them. I'm not a financial advisor, so I can't give
it's
any
information.
it's all information, but I hope it's all like really useful. Like everyone can, like, there's something for everyone to think about. But like I said, if you've got any questions, anyone can just get in touch. I'm easily contactable.
Yeah. And where can people find you online?
Yep, sure. So my Instagram is at Kalpana Fitz, Fitz. So at Kalpana Fitz, and that's the same with my Twitter as well.
Lovely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Speak On. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share with your friends, family, co-workers, strangers in the street. To find out more about us, including our upcoming events, head over to Instagram, instagram.com/speakon_. Bye!